Do you love food and do you love camping? If so, you found your place. I'm going to be sharing all of the techniques, all of the secrets I've learned as a chef, and about how to pull off great meals in my camper van. For the next 8 episodes, I'm going to be running a cookery school. My name is Michael Roberts. I'm a chef camper, and you can be one too. Let's go. This cookery course has 8 episodes, and on the final episode, we're going to be cooking up a meal that uses all of the skills and all of the components that we build up over 1 to 7. So, if you stick with this all the way to the end, then hopefully you're going to have the confidence and the ability to pull off a memorable meal. I am now going to open up Basco's Pantry to share with you everything I carry in the pantry in order to hit the 5 key flavour profiles that I want to hit when I'm cooking. And as a chef, these are really, really important. So let's work through them one by one, and I'm going to pull out from my kitchen what I carry. First one, salt. If I could give you 3 ingredients to make your food taste better and enhance the flavour of everything, it would be seasoning, seasoning, seasoning. Without seasoning, food tastes bland. It doesn't come alive. And how you add seasoning and how you use it is very important. You should actually try and use the seasoning at the start of cooking, and that way then it nicely balances through the dish. But if you put too much in, it's too salty. And if you don't put enough in, you then have to add too much at the end to try and balance it out. It's much better to try and get the right amount at the beginning, and this is where skill and practice comes in. Now, if you want to carry salt, you can just carry salt. I wouldn't recommend table salt. I recommend this, Maldon sea salt flakes, or kosher salt, or Anglesey sea salt, salt from Anglesey. It's very nice. But Maldon salt flakes is what I can get from the supermarket, and I bet you can too. Now, we don't have to just add salt. We can add things that are salty to enhance this flavour. So, let me introduce you to another little chef secret from the kitchen, Maggie's salt seasoning. This stuff is a flavour booster. You put this into stuff and it naturally enhances the flavour of everything. Treat it almost like a liquid stock. Now, if you can't get hold of this, you can use a stock cube or an anchovy or something like that, something with that saltiness that will really help round off the flavours. So number 1, salt. Flavour profile number 2, sweet. Sweet things make them last longer on your tongue. Sugar kind of sits on your tongue and the flavour just stays in your mouth, and it gives you this long-lasting feel. It's also great in savoury cooking because, again, it just rounds off the flavour. It's all about everything working in harmony. Now, there are a few things that I carry to enhance that sweetness. Naturally, sugar. You can put sugar in your tomato sauces if you're making pasta and stuff like that. But there's also like random stuff as well. So look, cranberry sauce. It's a little bit bitter, but actually there's enough sugar in that to make it quite sweet. That will often go into my red wine jus and stuff like that to add a bit of sweetness. Honey. Honey is great for all sorts of stuff, putting them on vegetables and roasting it. You just don't want to burn it, but it's a great addition to your flavour. And then kind of this balsamic. Now, if you reduce this, it gets sweeter and sweeter and sweeter. Balsamic vinegar. If you put it as it is, it's more of a sour flavour, but if you reduce this down, it goes sweet. So if you add it at the beginning, it starts getting sweet. Flavour profile number 2, sweet. Now, don't worry, you don't need to write this down, because below I'm going to put a link to all of this. I'm also going to list on my website the whole list of ingredients that I carry in my pantry. So if you want to visit the website, chefcampers.com, you will see everything in this episode kind of all detailed out, almost a notepad for this lesson. So just sit back, relax, have your cup of tea, have your wine, have your beer, and enjoy it. Right, number 3, sour. We're going to stick with this kind of theme when we're at the moment. So let's get something out that's sour. Sour is the acidity in food. It's what I'm going to use the word balance a lot. It's all about finding that balance, but sour notes are acidic notes, and they add brightness. They lighten up your mouth. They bring a dish alive. They get you excited about it. Something like squeeze of a lemon on a dish or on top of the fish. It just opens up your taste buds in your mouth and gets you excited about it. So I always try and carry a lemon if I can. Red wine vinegar too. So red wine vinegar I use all the time in all sorts of stuff. And over the next 8 episodes, you're going to see me use this quite a bit, and a lemon. But also there's something else, because what I want to illustrate here is there are overlaps between it. So I know we had sweetness and we had balsamic vinegar in the sweetness, but this is also kind of in the sour category as well. It floats between the two. Reduce it, becomes very sweet. Leave it as it is, or don't, or get a, you know, a different grade. It might be more sour. So it's learning how to taste it and identify it yourself. But that's something to consider too. Now, it's important to say stuff like Tabasco and other things, they're developed and designed in a way to hit kind of the flavour profile. So it's kind of salty, it's sweet, and it's sour. There's a few other things in this as well, which we haven't got to them yet. Right, number 4 is bitter. Now this sounds like an unusual flavour profile, but this is all about contrast. By having contrast, you identify the different notes and the different flavours within your food. Just imagine having the plate of the same thing constantly and it's a bit repetitive, almost like, I don't know, having plain pasta all the time. There's nothing really that brings it alive. Bitter flavours work very well in complementing sweet flavours and sour flavours. And the 5th one, which we'll come on to in a moment. Anyway, how do we capture bitter? Well, if you've ever drizzled extra virgin olive oil over your salad, then that's the bitter flavour that you're adding. Or if you've added capers, which I often carry in my pantry, to a sauce or a dish, then that's adding a bitter note, just to give you that contrast, which allows you to appreciate everything else that's going on in the dish. Okay, the 5th, but actually not the final one. I know I said there was 5, but there's a 6th ingredient which I'm going to talk about in a moment. But number 5 is umami. Now, umami is something that's only maybe in the past 10, 20, 25 years, I don't know, I'm getting on a bit now, but it's a flavour that's now recognised by pretty much every chef in the world as an additional profile to a dish. And this is kind of the fullness in your mouth. It's in the back of your mouth, I would say. And to illustrate that, I would say, what have we got here? We've got some soy sauce, we've got some Worcestershire sauce, we have got some fish sauce, and Marmite as well. Marmite is a great addition. It's like your nutritional yeast, isn't it? These are the sort of things that just add that extra element. But it's also in stuff like tins of tomatoes. And if you're wondering what tin of tomato to buy at the supermarket, buy these, the Mutti Pulper. These are the finest tomatoes in the land. I'm sure you could get better if you go to Italy, but these are from Italy, and I'm sure you could get some even better ones. But if you're just going to a supermarket, these are what I recommend. And if I'm making a great dish in a restaurant and I see Mutti on the shelf, I'll be grabbing the Mutti. So that's a tin of tomatoes that you want. So they are the 5 key flavour profiles. But there is something else that you need in order to make great food. You see, great food is wonderful. I've had it everywhere. I've had great food sitting on a bin in the kitchen at the end of a 14-hour shift. It was great food, but it didn't make it a great meal. There's a difference between great food and a great meal. And whilst I've opened up my pantry and showed you all these ingredients, what I want to do for the recipe today is actually less. I want to add less things to it, because one of the most important things that you need to understand is that a great meal can often be different to just great food. A great meal is something that provides a memory for people. And there is a reason why I am stood right here at this exact spot. So at this exact spot, if I just walk with the camera, this is a place at this very bench here, parked up here, not with this van, but with a car, that I brought my grandparents, my nan and granddad. And if there are 200 views on this video right now, there's a good chance 195 of them will be my nan. So shout out to nan and granddad, because if she's not watching it, she's showing it to other people. My #1 fan. But this is, nan, if you're watching this, which you will be, and granddad, this is the place that we had that picnic, where we packed up the car with picnic. We had piccalilli out of a jar, we had some ham, we had some lemon Swiss roll, we had some elderflower spritz sparkling juice, and we had some pork pies and sausage rolls, and we just had a lovely picnic here. And whilst that food, wasn't made by me and it wasn't the greatest food in the world, it was nice, it was enjoyable. But what really mattered was the fact that I was having an amazing meal in a memorable moment with this as a backdrop. Mother Nature turned up. And that's something that I really want to drill into all of you right now. In order to be an amazing chef camper, Do not underestimate the power of location. You've got wheels, you can travel, and also just the moment itself. Don't get lost in the cooking. Enjoy the meal, enjoy the moment, because that's what provides the memories. So really, really important, the difference between a meal, a good meal, and good food. So, how do you make a great meal? Well, you can literally just take your grandparents with you, because I'm guaranteed, you know, it'll be a great meal. Or what you can do is work in a way that makes it effortless. Now, to make it effortless, you need this sixth element, this sixth secret ingredient that I'm going to share with you now. Confidence. It sounds obvious, but when you go for a meal, the people cooking that food for you have got confidence. They've got confidence in their ability, they've got confidence in their skill, and as a result, they're able to pull off a meal that's effortless for you to enjoy. Now imagine going for dinner or for lunch at someone's house and they're incredibly stressed. And they're trying to cook something, they haven't got the confidence or the skill to cook it really well, which means they get stressed, they get upset, they get angry. It's not going to be an enjoyable meal. It doesn't matter if they're serving one of the finest dishes in the land. If they're stressed and not giving off that calmness about them, then it's not going to be an enjoyable meal for your guests. So it's really important that you are confident when you're cooking for guests. To do that, you need to stay within your skill set. And to raise your skill set, you need to practice. But to start off with, you just want to get the fundamentals right. Get the fundamentals right, do a simple dish, invite people over and enjoy that moment, that meal, that memory. And then practice in the background. And when you get really confident and your skill set goes up, then do a slightly more impressive meal if you like. But don't try and run before you can walk. Confidence in your ability to execute the dish is very, very important. Okay? Have we got that? That's my serious bit done with now. Let's do a recipe. The recipe is pork chops with smashed potatoes, grilled jumbo spring onions, and a crème fraiche and mustard sauce. Simple as that. Let's start cooking the dish. Right, first element is the pork chop. The pork chop, I've asked the butcher to cut it super thick. We're over an inch thick here now. You're going to think this is a bit mental, but if you can get hold of a big piece of loin and slice it yourself, cut it that thick. How do we cook it perfectly? Well, we can't just put it on the frying pan or on the barbecue and just say 4 or 5 minutes either side. The temperature of the meat is different, the humidity, the wind, everything changes when you're cooking outside. We have to do something that chefs do in the kitchen, which is we cook to temperature. This is a meat probe, it's a probe. We pop it inside the meat and it gives us an instant read of what the temperature inside the meat is. Once it reaches the safe temperature, we know it's cooked perfectly and we can take it off the heat. So here is our pork chop. And what we're going to do is I'm going to cut kind of a layer of fat off the pork chop. You might think, wow, we need to throw that in the bin. When I look at this fat chunk, I see flavour. And this is a great kind of tapas actually. So in Spain, they'll fry off little pieces of pork fat like this, let them render down a little bit, pop them in a bowl and serve them as tapas with the wine. So if you want to do that for this dish, it keeps the punters happy. So whilst I was getting all this ready and set up, I got my potatoes on. I got tiny little New Jersey new potatoes into my frying pan, which I'm going to cook the pork in. I popped them into my frying pan with water, cold water, and heavily salted the water. A big handful of the Maldon sea salt flakes. And what that's going to do is the cold water is going to bring the internal temperature up steadily for the vegetable, because it's a hard vegetable, but the heavy salt in the water is also going to evenly season the potato. It's also going to give the potato a better texture for when it comes to frying them. So once they've part boiled and they're a little bit soft, we're going to take them out, drain them, let them cool down. And then when it comes time for service, when it comes time for us to plate up this meal, we're going to pop them in the frying pan, squash them down, and then just get some nice crispy edges and colour onto them. Simple as that. Now I'm going to pop those potatoes into this bowl here and just let them cool down. I'm going to put the frying pan back onto the stove. It's now dry. And I'm going to put these potatoes just out the way here. If Rupert decides to jump off there to eat the potatoes, can you let me know, please? Because he sometimes does that. My pork chop is in the pan. Now the secret to this is just leaving it. You don't need to touch it or move it around, just let it sit in the pan. Now if you're doing this on a barbecue, which we'll talk about maybe next week or the week after on open fire, then we'll approach it slightly differently. But just to do this easy and simple, we're just going to cook it in the pan outdoors. Whilst that's just cooking away, I'm going to get my potatoes ready. So the big chopping board I've got, which is nice and clean, I've got my potatoes that are part boiled. I'm just going to gently squeeze them down and make them a little bit flatter. And that way they have a little bit more surface area to touch the pan when it goes into the pan. And it will give them a nice little crispy texture too. So just going to flatten them down. This really is a very, very simple dish. I've got one pan on the go. I've got some potatoes that are just going to go in the pan once the pork is out. And once the pork is out, it's just going to rest and it's just going to relax. And when it's relaxing, that's when I'll reheat the potatoes and I'll pop the spring onions in. It's now time to flip it. Now, I know we're cooking to temperature, but after about 3 minutes of frying on one side, let's just flip it over and see how the colouring is happening. I'm expecting golden brown. Okay, so the pork chop has done about a couple of minutes either side. So what I'm going to do now is basically cover all sides. So the skin side, even though we've trimmed the skin off, I'm just going to let it sit in that skin a little bit more. And then I'm going to do the other side too. And that way we sear off every side of the meat. I'm then going to lower the heat a little bit and then start putting my probe inside the meat and see how far off the temperature we are. One of the things to note when cooking outside, particularly if you're using a gas stove, is that the wind might affect the gas. And it might mean your temperature goes high, it goes low, it goes high, it goes low. And this is some of the challenges that you have when you're cooking in a pan. So just keep your eye on it. And if it looks like it's going wrong, don't worry, don't panic. Keep the guests happy. Feed them more of these. Everyone will be happy. This is all about being calm when you cook. So, to give you some idea as to where the meat is now, we're going to insert this. Now, I'm not expecting it anywhere close to being ready, but it might give me an idea of how far off we've got to go. So, we are currently at 48 degrees centigrade and climbing. So and we're climbing quite fast, which is good. So we're not that far off actually, it being perfect. We're currently at 51 degrees and it's still cooking. Rupert's getting closer to the action, and that's because I've just taken the pork chop out of the pan. Once it reached the temperature I was happy with. I'll put the temperature down below in the comments. I'll put it on the website and in the comments. I pop the potatoes into the pan. And because the potatoes are part boiled, they only really need to be heated through. But all of that fat and flavour from the pork is now in the pan, which means that's going to season the potatoes on the outside. And I've also put in the spring onions as well. I slice the spring onions down the middle and then put the open part of the spring onion directly onto the pan, onto the bottom. And that's going to develop some flavour and some crust again. Now at this point, you can add some butter, some garlic, some rosemary into the pan, which I think I'm going to do. The herbs, the garlic, the butter, just gently heating up in that pan, just sizzling away, putting a nice crust and flavour onto it. Right, I'm just going to test the pork again to make sure it's raised in temperature, since it's been, and it's gone up 4 degrees, which is perfect. And all the juices are just forming on the top. I'm really looking forward to this. Right, I think what we're going to do, pop our potatoes and spring onions into this bowl. I've got some beautiful pork scratchings, which I think we should do. Let's add them to the potatoes a little bit. And in fact, we'll put a couple on top of the pork as well. And first off, we'll go in with the mustard. So, a dollop of mustard. Listen to it sizzle. Followed by a bigger dollop of creme fraiche. And just get it in there as well. So we've got the tanginess of the creme fraiche, tanginess of the mustard. We're just going to stir that up. It's in the pan that we've had the pork in and the potatoes in, so it's nice and simple. Let's add some nice fresh herbs to this. So we'll go parsley again, and we'll go I'll add some pepper to it because I think. So here we have a very, very simple dish. A nice thick piece of pork chop, cooked perfectly to temperature, not to time. Some potatoes that were simply just reheated in the same pan to put a nice crusty edge on it. We've got the pork scratchings on top for texture and flavour. We've got some nice charred spring onions, and we've got a simple sauce that only took a minute to make in the pan. Now, if you can just practice a dish this simple, then you're going to get more confident, and as you get more confident, you're going to be able to deliver this to a table and really enjoy yourself. And the best bit is you can take this to a table, sit down, enjoy it, and get to listen to what people have to say, whether it's new marriage, a new romance in their life, or a new job, or maybe something that they're going through that's difficult. The meal time is the time for us to sit down and talk. And part of the reason why I'm doing this series is I'm worried that we're losing the dinner table. But what I want to do is bring the dinner table to places like this, and hopefully that will just turn into something amazing. Butch up, butch up, butch up. It's now time for me to dig into this dish, and I've already tried a bit of the pork, and let me tell you, it is beautiful. It's succulent, it's delicious, it's got the flavour of the fat from it, the seasoning, the tanginess of the cream just goes well with it, and it's just beautiful. It ticks all the boxes for me, and it's the perfect way for me to demonstrate why cooking something simple but well is better than cooking something complicated but not very well. And that is the key thing that you need to take away from this lesson. Keep it simple, get the confidence, and then build up from there. Use your key flavours, your 5 key flavours, your sweet, your sour, your bitter and salt and umami, and use that to pack the pantry like I packed my pantry. And then with all those flavour boosters, you can then create a fabulous meal that you can enjoy in a place like this. I just wish my nan and granddad was here, to be honest with you, but I think I'll have to manage. Well, me and Rupert, I think we'll manage with this. See you next week for episode 2, and don't forget to subscribe and like this video. Leave me a comment below if you like this, because I have enjoyed making it. I'd like to make more. Bye-bye.